after a vaginal birth and labouring, like that's so exhausting in itself. It's like running a marathon. They say it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. Having a Caesar is major abdominal surgery. Like imagine having, you've run that marathon and then you've had to go for a Caesar. So double whammy, you'd feel like you're being hit by a truck, and then we expect you to get up to your baby all night. So, it's no wonder women start off feeling exhausted.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to No Place Like Home. I am Larissa and I'm here with Jess.
Hello.
And we are here again with the beautiful Narelle.
Hello.
Thank you. Today we're going to talk about intervention and the cascade of intervention that can happen.
Yes, we talk about this a lot. So basically intervention in birth is any intervention that interferes with the normal physiology of the birthing process. So, and then we talk about the cascade of, we put in one intervention and then that causes another intervention. So then that's where it just cascades. So that can include induction. Mm-hmm. So any way that you induce it, whether you use a prostin like a gel or whether you break the waters, break the membranes, or put up a synthetic hormone. It can also include pain relief, so, giving some morphine or giving an epidural. We know we do these things for a reason most of the times. However, there can be adverse effects from that can cause other interventions to be needed for your birth.
Okay.
Why is intervention sometimes necessary?
Obviously, you want a healthy mum and healthy baby at the end of the day. And as much as we would love to give everyone their beautiful planned experience, birth is not predictable. And you don't know what's going to happen with any birth. Women could be birthing, they could be labouring beautifully and then something deviates, which is going to potentially cause harm to her or her baby. So there are times and places definitely for intervention, and you'd hope, they're only done for medical reasons. We're also looking at a population which isn't getting healthier as well, which, our women are getting bigger. We know that. We know that their diabetes is a decent thing now, and high blood pressure is another thing that we're seeing a lot of women having, and those. With those, if they're monitored properly, fantastic. Then we don't have to change anything. However, sometimes there are complications for that we do need to intervene. So, and during birth, you might have a baby that's distressed, or a woman that's not coping, or her blood pressure has gone super high. There are times and places for interventions. Definitely. We look at the stats now, and we're intervening more than we ever have before. However, our outcomes aren't really changing. So, there is that argument of how much we're intervening. And I think definitely we are, as a model here in Australia, very medically orientated. And that's a lot of people, there's probably a lot of reasons for this, but a lot of people will say that's because we don't have that continuity of care and we know that the best outcomes for women and their families come when they've got a continuity with whether it's an obstetrician or a midwife throughout their pregnancy who know them, who know their bodies well, and whether that's having an effect.
It's such a small number of people who have access to that. I can't remember the figure, but
it's
tiny.
Yeah, we don't do it well, so especially at the bigger hospitals, you're coming in and you don't know anyone and you're just getting who's on that day. So they don't know you, they don't know your story, and, you're often then not seeing the same provider at each visit, so then you're having to retell your story and they might do things a little bit different. So I think that continuity of care, we haven't got that right here, and there is that potential that's leading to more interventions.
And I think, it's interesting speaking to you, Narelle, because you have seen many different facets of it, right? So you work in the big hospitals, then you're in Tanzania, and then you yourself are in rural, areas. What, in your opinion, where is that? There's no such thing as a perfect spot, but looking at all of those different environments, like for me, hearing you when we previously spoke about the rural care, that for me, like, kind of makes me feel safe and nice and like, you know, all of those things, because what you just talked about, that continuity of care.
You know your team.
You know your team.
Yeah.
And all those sorts of
things.
And
they know you, and often they've been the GP, you know, for your since you were younger,
born,
and they know you really well, and that's really beautiful. However, then you don't have the backup of what you have in the city. So like I said before, there's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah.
However, you know, if we've got such a strict criteria now that low risk birth, you know, there's so many women that don't fit into that criteria now. So then they have to be booked at other hospitals because they can't birth at those smaller hospitals. And, you know, even I know our local hospital, which I said has got the most amazing staff, incredible 2 GP obstetricians who are absolutely incredible up there. However, you know, they are a smaller site, so they don't always have theatre going, or they don't have enough midwives, so they'll often be on bypass, so women can't birth there. So there is, well, it's you know, ideally it's a great model. It doesn't always have the services to then back it up. You know, and if we do need to, if we do have a woman who has an obstetric emergency that we can't manage within the hospital and we need to get her to a high level of care, we have to get transport, whether that be plane, helicopter or road, to get her out. And, you know, for us, where I am at the moment, and I'm definitely not the most rural and remote that, you know, you can get out there and isolated, it's at least a 3-hour journey, and, you know, but you've got to get a plane there and you've got to get the woman to the airport, and, you know, there is that delay in service that you don't have in the cities. You know, should your baby need neonatal intensive care or special care nursery, you know, then you've got that separation of women and babies as well. And yeah, so nothing's perfect. Definitely working remotely. So I worked up in the Kimberley for a little while and fell in love with that. So that was, you got to know your women there really well, because, and this is the local Indigenous women, they would come down from their communities because they weren't allowed to birth on their land. So they would come down for what they called sit down. So about 36 weeks they'd come into town. And so you'd know them quite well because they'd come, and often they were alone, maybe with a mum or a friend. But most of the time they were alone, so they would come and knock on the door and come for a chat. And so you would know your women really, really well there. But again, should something happen, your higher level services are further away. So yeah, I don't think we've got it perfect anywhere, but I don't think we will. But I just think you have just such this great breadth of experience to be in a city hospital plus rural communities plus. At the end of the day, it's just women having babies. It doesn't matter which culture you're in or which environment you're in. You know, women are still, birth's the same everywhere.
It's such
you know,
a great
and women
point.
need women still. I've got the most sensational memories of, you know, being up there with Indigenous women, and, you know, there was one where it was just all her family and just this village of women were in the birth suite, and, you know, they were sort of singing, and as she was having this baby, phenomenal. Well, the men are out there carving, you know, boab nuts, and, you know, I got one as a thank you when this baby was born. And then there was another lady who, she had no one, and I got to know her really, really well. So it was just, I remember on the night shift, her and I, and, you know, holding her and supporting her as she was giving birth. So, you know, I don't think it matters where you are. Women are vulnerable. Women need support wherever they are and however that looks at the time.
Yeah, whatever support that kind of comes in. Yeah.
But birth's the same everywhere, isn't it, really? Women. Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit of for anyone who's listening who doesn't know, a little bit of an idea of what constitutes a high-risk pregnancy? I know you said earlier that we're not getting healthier.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that's a really good point to make, because there's a lot of people are angry. People are angry about the rate of intervention and the fact that that's not changing birth outcomes. And so then why are we doing it?
Yeah.
And, you know, often it's like we look at, you know, hospitals being businesses at the end of the day and everything needing to happen on a certain timeline to keep those people happy, and we'll book in this induction here because God forbid you give birth over the weekend, and there's that. But what you said earlier about, you know, low risk versus high risk, I think it's an important point for people to have in mind about and another reason why interventions might happen.
Yeah. And, you know, it's spoken about definitely from a rural community, and I'm the only midwife on at the time, you know, in these hospitals, and my colleagues, you know, there's just one of you. So if you've got a woman coming in that, you know, has a big potential, she may get through everything and it might be fine. However, looking at her risks, you know, she has a really potential for some things to go really wrong with what resources we've got there. And that's where, as a midwife, you want to help, you know, you women have the birth where they want and how they want. However, as midwives, we need to feel safe in how we're practicing as well, to make sure that we can provide the care that the women deserve. So, you know, I think, and being high risk doesn't mean there's going to be any issues happening. It just means that you need to be monitored more just in case. You know, so, you know, like I said before, we are getting bigger as a nation, and that's pretty in all the Western countries. I think that's similar. Diabetes is on the rise, definitely. High blood pressure, but even women who have had, you know, might have had a baby before and had a significant bleed, they're then at high risk of next time having a big bleed. Right. So, you know, we would probably for them say, you know, it's not guaranteed you'll have another bleed. However, we would like to do this next time, or should we need to, this is, you know, if we hit that point, we'll do this, this and this. So have that plan before they go into labour. Yeah.
What does the flow-on effect look like starting the cascade? So, for example, if someone chooses pain relief, what could cause that? And then what can cause that?
What's having
nervous?
Pain relief, what can that then
what's the next? Yeah.
So thanks, I guess we know what you meant there.
Yeah.
I think the biggest one with the pain relief, and it depends what stage you have it in labour too, but, you know, for example, if you have some morphine towards the end of your labour, which is when you really, really want it, there is a potential that your baby can come out a little bit flat. So, of course, some of it passes to your baby. So then, you know, your baby, when it comes out, isn't this vigorous crying baby. They're sometimes, you know, a bit
sleepy.
Floppy, a bit sleepy. They need a little bit of help getting going again. So that's sort of just one example of, you know, great that you've helped the pain there, but this is a result of that. And that does happen sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, the morphine just, like, I don't know.
What about epidurals?
So epidurals, I mean, they're all safe. We wouldn't give them to women if they weren't safe, that's for sure. However, you know, I guess with epidurals, you lose that body's natural urge to push. So there's a lot more guided pushing a lot of the time with that. And also you don't have gravity because you're often flat on your back. So you don't have that opportunity to, some places do the walking epidurals. However, the majority still now do the ones where you're on your back. So, you know I birthed on all fours.
Same.
And that for me worked. But you don't get, you know, and it's just gravity. It works, you know, it's just simple. You know, so you're sort of fighting against it when you're pushing upwards. You're not pushing with the body's natural urges. So then your rates of needing assisted birth, which is, you know, maybe a vacuum or forceps go up. Of course, if you use them, or then your episiotomies are more likely. So that's where they talk about, you know, there's absolutely no, if they weren't safe, we wouldn't use them. However, if that is a consequence that can happen from using these. Yep.
Because the baby has to go almost up a little hill, right? Like if you're lying down, the baby doesn't just like come out straight. It's got to go up.
No, because you think you've got your coccyx there, so that goes up and around, so the baby needs to push up there.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
Whereas if the other way, it's going downwards.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. I'm all about less pushing. Less energy.
I know, you almost think, why wouldn't they just prop women up regardless if they had an
Again,
epidural?
it's just what's happened traditionally though as well. And, you know, as a midwife, it is easier if you've got a woman calmly lying on the bed. However, it's not what's best for her. So, you know, definitely any position that a woman feels comfortable in. Squatting is a great one. A lot of women will squat. All fours. I was all fours up on the bed.
I thought I would squat, but all fours was my...
Yeah. And that's standing. Yeah. Even lying on the side with a leg up. It's whatever at the time.
Yeah.
That woman feels like she needs. Yeah. Usually at that stage, you're not telling her what to do; she's telling you. So,
that's definitely.
The birth trauma inquiry that's currently taking place in Australia.
Yeah.
What's your take on it?
I think it's fantastic. Like we said previously, I don't know if numbers of birth traumas are going up, but is it being more recognised and spoken about now? Because we're saying I think 1 in 3 women are experiencing birth trauma. However that may be that they're experiencing it, whether it's physically, emotionally. I think it's amazing that it's being heard. So I know it's only in New South Wales at the moment, but the hope is I think that it will go nationally. Which is definitely needed because it's not isolated to New South Wales, but good on them for stepping up and doing it. The amount of submissions, I think they got thousands in a couple of weeks. So women want to talk about it and women want to speak about their stories, which is fantastic. And we can only improve from that. So again, with knowledge is power. So if women are telling us what their issues were, great, we can build on that and we can work on it so other women then don't have to experience that. So great that they're sad that we have to have it, that the trauma is there in the first place. But how great that we're finally talking about it now and, you know, that we're recognising it. Women are feeling heard. They're feeling like they've got a voice and then we can do something about it. Yeah. So I think that's still ongoing at the moment. And I think early next year, hopefully we'll get some recommendations and be able to see where our services need to improve.
And put some things in place. What do you think needs to happen from an education piece around informed consent and how to reduce the numbers of people experiencing birth trauma? So
we were talking earlier about the term obstetric violence. And I think that ties in here, doesn't it? With
yeah, definitely. That those words obstetric violence has come up a lot with this birth trauma inquiry. I, as a health professional, don't like the words obstetric violence because I have so much respect, and for my obstetric colleagues, you know, the obstetricians that I've worked with, I don't think any single one of them comes to work and wants to do harm or intends to do harm to a woman. So, and that's not taking away that hasn't happened. However, are we not giving that information to women earlier so they're not knowing what to expect until they get into a vulnerable position, and then we just have to do things? You know, should they have this information antenatally, this could happen or this could happen. The only reasons why we would do this is because this intervention is because we need to for this reason. And then I wonder whether people would have more understanding of it. Definitely a lot of things probably happen that shouldn't. You know, you're in the moment. A lot of times things happen in a split second or, you know, and people aren't in the position to get that informed consent that they probably will get that information that they would like to have. And in hindsight, you know, looking back on that, it's quite traumatic and I can understand that. But I think we need to start that education definitely more antenatally. And again, that happens with continuity of care.
Yeah, it seems to be a really big thing throughout the entire journey or lifetime from pregnancy right through to birth and then the postpartum. It seems to be this.
And, you know your women, so, you know, they might have something in their past which, you know, doing a vaginal examination might really trigger them. So if you've had that conversation antenatally, you'll say, okay, let's minimise them and we'll only do them in these situations, as opposed to them getting in the birth suite. They've never met the midwife or whoever the doctor is on for the day, you know, like that's who doesn't know their past and know that that's a huge trigger for them. So
such a good point, Narelle. Yeah, there's just so many variables that come into it.
Yeah, I think that's where that continuity of care is the dream. If we could have that for every woman, and they had, you know, a team of healthcare professionals, however that looks, whether that's a private midwife or team midwifery or midwifery group practice or a private obstetrician, however that looks, it's just that consistency of someone that just knows them and knows their story really well and can adapt their care around that woman's needs.
And even, you know, the birthing doula, because I know a lot of the birthing doulas that I know of, they know their story. They're spending that time intimately with them. The issue around the private midwifery is that Medicare is not recognising it. Like it's just not covered, which is just extraordinary.
Yeah.
Considering the level of qualification that you have to go through and the role that you play.
Yeah.
I just don't understand, because that could be a really big
It could be, yes.
link in the chain.
Definitely. And I think there needs to be more collaboration with private midwives in the hospitals.
Yeah.
Because at the moment it's very much them and us. You know, I think, and geographically we're a nightmare in Australia. A place, you know, say England, for example, who do home birthing really, really well, but then they're 15 minutes up the road from a hospital. You know, we don't have that. You know, it's great if you are, but there's not very many people here that have that proximity to help should they need it. So it is a tricky one. I think there definitely needs to be more collaboration between private midwives and hospitals. So they've got that backup should they need it. And as a woman, you know that you've got that, okay, great, this is what we hope to do. You get your birth pool at home, have that all lovely. Should something go wrong, great, I know I'm going to go to that hospital. They've got my details. And, you know, I'll be able to have my private midwife continue the care with me there as well. Yeah. Yeah, we just don't have that quite right at the moment.
Yeah. I've heard both sides, you know, some people who have had to transfer from a home birth to a hospital and just been belittled, and just the care has been so shocking.
There's still definitely a stigma around it. Yeah.
And then there's other people who have had to transfer and just been so well looked after. So again, coming back to you never know who's going to be working.
Well, that's
everyone's human. All of that.
It's like we were saying, that it's the attitude.
Yeah.
I don't actually think it's the information, the training, or the anything. It's really this attitude around people's individual concepts and thoughts of what is wrong and right. And, you know, without getting too philosophical, I think that's ultimately what's wrong with the world now, right? Yeah. Everyone's either right or they're wrong. Yeah. And no one can actually hold, there's truth in everything, in my opinion. Yeah. And it just seems to be a really big fundamental thing of...
It does, and it's where personal opinions, I think, and I guess professional opinions come in when at the end of the day we're midwives, which is with women, and, you know, that's supporting vulnerable women, whether they're someone who's, you know, we've known for their whole pregnancy, or someone who's come in really vulnerable halfway through a labour at home. And this is frightening from her because it's obviously diverted from her plans. Yeah. So let's open our arms and bring this woman in and look after her. With respect,
if only everyone could be like you.
Look, it's great
we just
sitting
need
here
a cloning
in theory,
machine.
but you know, we're also at the moment, and this is great. You know, obviously, it's our dream to give that to every woman. However, we are still working in a healthcare system which is at the moment understaffed. You know, there's burnout, there's fatigue. You know, and I think that does definitely impact on the care women are getting at the moment, and that's not even nationally; it's internationally. At the moment, so. Often, you know, you might be at the end of a busy shift and a woman comes in and they're not met with open arms because you've had a terrible shift, or you're coming off a double shift. Or,
Going back to intervention, can we talk a little bit about how interventions can affect the postpartum? So I know, you know, like the worst case scenario is you get your waters broken. Yep. You put on Syntocin. You get an epidural, you end up with a cesarean when you didn't want one. Yep. And so obviously the recovery time from that is very epic and a lot harder than after a vaginal birth.
Absolutely.
But then there's also like healing from an episiotomy is pretty painful as well.
Huge, yeah.
So how would you say, I mean, as a doula, I've seen, I'm a postpartum doula, so I don't attend births, but I've seen just how rattled some of the mums I support are from the interventions that they've had, and the healing, just like physical pain is one thing, but then also it kind of knocks their confidence sometimes too, that they've had to get all of these things that they didn't plan for.
I can't even imagine. I mean, you think after a vaginal birth and labouring, like that is so exhausting in itself. It's like running a marathon. They say it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. Having a Caesar is major abdominal surgery. Like imagine having, you know, you've run that marathon and then you've had to go for a Caesar, so double whammy. You know, you'd feel like you're being hit by a truck, and then we expect you to get up to your baby all night. So, you know, it's no wonder women start off feeling exhausted, and then of course, you know, everything. They're on a lot more pain relief after that, so they're not moving around as they normally would. So recovery is a bit slower. They're not able to handle their baby as probably as comfortably as well as they normally would. milk is often delayed. So, you know, your milk might be an extra 24 hours, 36 hours until that comes in. So you've got this really grumpy, hungry baby and you've got no milk there. So it's a really tough, you know, for women who it doesn't always just go to plan, and that's a reality for a lot of women. So you just hope that there's enough support for them in that time. Yeah.
Does having an induction affect your breastfeeding experience?
Personally, no, not at all. But no, I wouldn't say. I haven't seen the scientific papers to tell us anything. But you can still have a very normal birth with being induced as well. And remembering being induced doesn't mean the whole works. It might just mean
if it's like your experience,
absolutely
amazing.
So I would hope that, you know, next time I go in, might not even need the drip. They might be able to rupture my membranes if that's the path we go down next time. Hopefully I just go spontaneous and it's great. And Andy's in town.
Yes.
But, you know, it might just be that they rupture membranes and that's all my body needs to get stimulated to go into labour. So, you know, induction doesn't necessarily mean everything. You know, sometimes women just need a bit of gel and that will get them going into labour. So, you know, everybody's different, and it doesn't necessarily mean that just because you're being induced, you're going to have a really difficult postpartum period. For me personally, that was the opposite. You know, I had a great experience and my milk came in as it should. You know, I had the engorged boobs when they should. You know, frozen nappies were great.
Frozen nappies?
Yeah.
That's a new one.
Yeah, they're great because they fit nicely. Yeah.
There you go.
And somebody got me onto, there were two things for my breastfeeding. Sorry, this is going off topic.
Go for it.
The Chiara, have you heard of them, the probiotics for breastfeeding and pregnancy? And they're supposed to, it is supposed to prevent mastitis. And so I swear by them because I never had a problem. And also Silverettes.
Yeah, see, Silverettes came out after I'd had, I mean, maybe they were around and I just didn't know. I'm so sad I didn't get to try them.
They're amazing. So they just, if for anyone doesn't know, they're like hubcaps for nipples, really.
I saw them at the memo the other day and I was like,
they're about $80 a set, and you think, oh, do we really need it? But they've got sort of antibiotic and antifungal and properties in the silver. So it's all very natural. So you feed and you whack them in and off
and
you
do
trot.
you put them in the freezer so that they're cold, or
you just
don't?
And you can put a little bit of colostrum on them. But I found them, and you know, for women who obviously have cracked, bleeding nipples, which can be very painful, I found them. I did not have a problem.
Yeah, they
at
weren't
all.
around when I.
No, I think they're the best $80 you could possibly spend.
Oh my God.
So that's a bit off topic, but they were my two hot tips.
We love those little hot tips. Thank you so much, Narelle. I've really enjoyed speaking with you. I could keep chatting. I don't know about you, Jess.
I know.
I could keep chatting forever and
through
ever
the whole
and
ever.
day. I just think your breadth of experience and knowledge is just amazing and so beautiful. And I think your attitude towards caring for women is just incredible. And if we could clone you in every little, I think, you know, the system would be amazing. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
This podcast represents the opinions of our hosts and their guest speakers. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and content here should not be taken as medical or professional advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any personal recommendations and medical care. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate based on the best available information at the time of recording, we welcome any comments, suggestions or feedback via our website contact form, home.com.au/contact. Names and details of personal experiences may have been changed to allow for anonymity and privacy. To join the conversation, join us on social media at Home Postpartum.